everyone. Welcome back to One Sage's View podcast. I'm Sarah Christensen. I'm your host. And today we are recording this episode. It is the 14th of March and it will be out next week. Looking forward to our guest today, Marie O'Neill. And we're going to be talking Jupiter in Taurus, which is coming up. So as you know, I'm grateful to share my astrology, my passion of astrology with you, and to share how it supports us in our life and our human experience. So I'm going to introduce you now to Marie. Marie O'Neill is an MBA and a distinguished Toastmaster, is the founder of Padma Life Coaching, located in Santa Rosa, California. Her specialties are astrology, a speaker, life coaching, and past life regression professional. Marie's studies in astrology began more than 20 years ago. After years of study, attending lectures and workshops, reading and erecting charts, Marie has added master level evolutionary astrologer to her tool chest from her focus with Stephen Forrest's apprenticeship program. She is now one of the teachers, I believe, at the FCEA. And back in 2012, Marie began studying esoteric astrology with Alan Oken as one of her mentors. She has found it to be also beneficial to the addition of her astrology toolbox. Marie currently teaches astrology workshops and classes at Kepler College, the FCEA, NORWAC, EA Zoom, NCGR, SFAS, and UWAC. And she's also a published author. So she has her book, And the Lotus Open, which you can find at the website for the book, and the lotusopen.com. So welcome, Marie. Thank you for coming and being a guest on the One Sage's View podcast. I really am excited to talk with you about all things Jupiter and Taurus.
Oh my goodness. It's a pleasure to be here with you, Sarah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I haven't had a lot of time to talk with you a lot lately because we've been so busy in our schedules, but it's so nice to have the time to reconnect. So to jump right into the Jupiter in Taurus, I want to give some dates so we can kind of have everybody aware of those. So we have Jupiter coming to Taurus on May 16th of 2023 and jumps into that later in the year. It's going to station retrograde September 4th at 15 degrees of Taurus, 35 minutes. And then the very last day of this year, it will station direct at 5 degrees Taurus. So it's going to be interesting. And as we go to move from Jupiter being in Aries, cardinal sign, fire, and into the peaceful Taurus. Somewhat peaceful because there's some other things going on.
That's for sure.
With that, but right out of the gate, I mean, what do you kind of see, that kind of switch up between Jupiter in Aries and moving into Taurus? What do you think, or thematically, people may be experiencing, looking at, or what kind of symbolism is out there for that?
With Taurus, it's Earth. And so I think, number one, globally, we are going to continue to look at nature and look at what's going on in our collective concerning our relationship with nature. I think that's going to expand with Jupiter in Taurus. We're also, because remember, I consider Jupiter the Santa Claus planet.
Yeah.
It's going to expand.
Right.
Whatever it is, it touches, for good or for ill. So when we look at Jupiter and Taurus, we of course have to look at the light with Jupiter and Taurus that it brings, that it shines, and also look at the shadow. So there is always the shadow side of things. And with it being in Taurus, looking at our relationship to the earth, to Mother Earth, to nature, dealing with our shadow and hopefully shining light in that area so that we can shift things, so that we can be in more simpatico with nature, because we're all a part of nature. And with Taurus, it's not a bull, it's a cow. It's and cows do want to relax, but and cows tend not to want to fight and argue, but cows can be really stubborn and all that, that.
Persistent
And
in what they want.
persistent, exactly.
Yeah.
So that willingness to change, I mean, it's a fixed earth sign. And it's before we have voice. I mean, it's what takes, Taurus takes that Aries energy, that spark of thought, and manifests it here on the earth plane. But it's still before we get to Gemini, which is where we speak it. So in Taurus, it's the raw materials. And so we're going to be dealing more with the raw materials. And of course, wherever that is in your chart, that's where you're going to, that area is going to be lit up, especially with Uranus being there.
Right.
I mean, it's already lit up. It's like Uranus went before, and it's just,
it's breaking
giving
old
you
patterns, right? Yeah, the Uranus in there says breaking the old patterns. But also, it actually broke through the earth, and that we got that volcano in Hawaii when Uranus entered into Taurus. I can't remember what year that was, but that was like, oh, there it is. Very bold and very showing us, the power of it breaking through things that look like they're permanent, right?
Absolutely.
And really creating change. But within us, it's more like things that are patterns that have been stuck for a while, or that we may not even realize have been there for a very long time, and we are poised to make a transformation of some sort. It encourages that catalyst. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's, with Jupiter, it's also how you've underestimated yourself. And it's a good time to shift that. To be bold, to in a Taurian way. Maybe you felt that you weren't deserving of beauty, or you weren't deserving of that extra piece of pie. I mean, I'm just saying. I say
Taurus
eat it.
moon, yes.
Taurus moon.
Yes, we both have the Taurus moon. We know this one well from our past.
Exactly.
Yes.
So don't underestimate yourself. It's it's higher thought. It's, maybe coming up with ritual to help you evolve. The Taurian ritual, doing something with stones, with with the stones from the earth, or with the dirt, or creating something. Artistic endeavors, I believe, are also going to increase.
Right.
It's interesting because I was reading an article on AI, and there's a huge issue, beginning of an issue of all the areas that AI are going to affect our lives. And one of them is in this particular medium. It was Joe Rogan, I believe. I think his name is Joe Rogan.
Right.
There was an AI interview that came out. So I bring that up because we're manifesting here on Earth what it is we want to create. And Jupiter is going to expand that. So what do we want?
What do our desire? Because that's Taurus to me is desire nature, but it's also what we value. It's Taurus, we often look in charts from a kind of a modern Western perspective, is kind of like those that value, what we put on value: money, currency, property, land, all these things, right? Beauty, art, and that symbolism underneath that. But in evolutionary astrology, we look at how then that is self-worth, or how we look at ourselves in that worth, that we are worthy of whatever, being in a body, being a human. What is all of that? That includes our sensuality. It includes our body, like how we love our body and appreciate our body, the temple, as they say. So Jupiter's expanding that, so the sensuality may be really looking good and going high.
It's going to be heightened. It's going to be it really is going to be much more sensual. I mean, you can also go overboard with that.
True. Mm-hmm.
But it is going to be enhanced. And, Taurus in esoteric astrology, it is, what's the axiom? When the eye is open, all is illumined. It's that third eye. Taurus is that third eye planet. And so it's being able to sense, because it sensates.
Right.
So it's being able to sense what's going on around it, what's going on in the room,
right.
What's going on in the collective. It's being able to sense all of that, and trust it.
That's good.
Because sometimes we can sense it, but we don't trust it. And we tell ourselves, oh, I'm not seeing that. I'm not feeling that. That's not accurate, or, not trusting ourselves. And so Jupiter, if you have any fears that in that area, that's going to be highlighted.
Is that like the shadow part of the Taurus thing? Yeah. So fears, or would, because there's like the axis of Taurus and Scorpio. Trust to me would be a keen one in there. So trust and distrust, or those kinds of would be important in there as well.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So
definitely. And yes, and with Taurus doesn't like to let go of anything.
Yeah.
Really, it doesn't.
Right. Fixed signs. I like what I like. It's mine. It's like those seagulls on that animation by Disney, where they go mine. Like, I think that was Finding Nemo, right? That's Taurus on when you're 2 years old. Mine.
Mine, exactly. And so, but Scorpio comes along and says, oh, you don't want to let it go? Well, guess what? It's going to die. It's gone anyway.
It goes down in the depths. It's gone. Sorry, guys.
Exactly. So it's, this is happening, and, it's happening for the betterment of consciousness.
Yeah, humanity, where we're going, right?
And
interesting that when Taurus jumps into, when Jupiter jumps into Taurus, May 16th, Pluto's already there, but Pluto is going to go.
Pluto's not in Taurus.
Not in Taurus. Pluto is squaring, excuse me, that's what I meant to say. Pluto is squaring from Aquarius. So right out of Jupiter's going to square out, from Aries, at the end of Aries there. It's going to be a very interesting eclipse next week. So, because Jupiter's right in the mix when that's all happening at the end degrees of Aries, because that eclipse is at 29 degrees of Aries. And Pluto in Aquarius is squaring all that. So it's kind of making it a little dicey for some folks, because that's kind of like, to me, when I see a square, it's like, that's kind of the thing that you're confronted with that you have to manage.
Oh, yeah. Cross purposes, different agendas.
Exactly. And so when you talk about Jupiter and Taurus, it's like, okay, earthy, get closer to the earth, understand your relationship with the earth, your body, the importance of your body, the importance of the quality of what's in our food systems, the ecosystems that we need to be alive on planet Earth. And then square Pluto coming from Aquarius, what we have in technology, either that's supporting us or it's not. And I think over the course of the 20 years that Pluto's in Aquarius, it's going to be an interesting juxtaposition of ourselves with how we relate to technology, what we can do with it to support ourselves within, Earth, holistically. And
right.
But this period,
rather than letting technology control us.
Right. And so this first position, this first square, like when they first jump into it, I think is rather interesting, because it's at the beginning of the cycle. It's the beginning of Pluto and Aquarius, right? But Pluto's finishing business with Capricorn, sweeping back and forth. And I covered that in a podcast with Simon a couple weeks ago. And what I think is like important about Jupiter is we're going to see this Jupiter through Taurus period and what it does with Pluto in that square. But then there'll be another one in 12 years, right? We don't have to go into that,
Yeah.
but we know that Pluto's in Aquarius for 20 years. So there will be another period of time that Jupiter and Pluto will square off, but deeper into Aquarius.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting now, like what gets introduced now and that may mature, because we also have Uranus in Taurus with Jupiter. So it's really, to me, it's almost like deconditioning something, because Jupiter's going to make it bigger when it's with Uranus, don't you think?
Oh yeah, it is. It's and you look at the intention of even the three planets of Pluto and Jupiter together. It's like, how do they work together? What is their intention? What is their goal? Together, and they're trying to merge that. Even though it's hard, we know it's going to be hard because it's Pluto's involved.
Right. But it's like you're going to change your idea of what you think about this thing forever.
Exactly.
That's the intention.
Pluto says something needs to die, really. And it's going to. And it's up to you how painful that is. And Jupiter is going to really expand it.
Our view and understanding of it, right? Yeah.
It really is. And with Aquarius, it's interesting because Aquarius is the polar opposite of Leo. And Leo is about the heart. Aquarius is not. Aquarius is the mind. It's an air sign. And you've got Taurus, which is the throat, getting ready. What are you going to be speaking?
Yeah.
What are your true values? What do you believe? And Aquarius is about the collective, of course. And so what do you believe about the collective? Where do you believe the collective should be going? What groups are you involved in? What is your relationship to the collective? Right. What do you value in the collective? All of this, everything is up. Right. Let's just say everything is up.
Which definitely can, the way it's been kind of unfolding, like in the past 5 years. If you couldn't see that, it's just right in front of us every single day about. In the United States, let's just say United States. We can go globally more, but United States, for example, we're at a period of time where Pluto has come back around for the United States across the point where Pluto was when we originated, and how we look at that. But now Pluto in Aquarius is kind of like how the United States emerged from that, right? Like there were things that in that kind of 10-year, that decade, 15, 20 years after 1776, that period of time was so instrumental in what formed for us as a collective in the beginning. And so that is all up on this square as well. So like what we value, that Taurus square, that Aquarian kind of beginnings. And to me, it's like our heritage is important, and kind of like where we are with all of that, right? Over things that were before our time and yet are in the condition of what we live every day. Right? Like it's still there in different forms, right? So.
Yeah, it is. And we've, of course, not healed those issues from that were up back then. If I'm not mistaken, we signed, the Declaration of Independence, and then we had the war.
Actually, the war had started, I believe, right before, because this is the coming podcast with Gary Lorenzen, where we debate the Sibley chart, which is great. And the forming, he's like, it depends on what you look at, which I agree. He goes down to the vote, which is like a really important chart on July 1st. But I believe that the war had already started, but it was more like what was coming out of that, and then our decision to separate from the mother country. And that vote was so critical on July 1st, and then all the signings and all the stuff that trickle through the days after, right? So, but then things that emerged later in that period of time, which were really kind of crucial, important around how Gary looks at it, which I think is going to be a fun podcast, but to explore all the data. But I nerded out with it for like 3 hours. Anyway, but yeah, so those values, those initial ideas and things that was forming an idea, where that went into kind of the creation. So, but there are different things that were also created at the
Oh
same
yeah,
the
yeah.
same
Because
time.
I know that the war wasn't over until I think the 1780s.
Correct, I
Or
believe. I don't have those
yeah,
dates off the top of my head. That's something I have to like pull up and actually have in front of
yeah.
me. But
But it was in Pluto and Aquarius.
yes, because it kind of, was 27 or 28 at Capricorn when all that was going down. And
Mm-hmm.
then it emerged into Aquarius when more like parts of the Constitution came into being, right? It took
Mm-hmm.
years,
Mm-hmm.
kind of a few years for that to like net itself out,
Oh yeah.
to what we have today. That we're still arguing and debating over
Oh yeah.
certain parts.
Yeah.
So yeah. But I think in terms of the Taurus piece with Jupiter, I mean, it's fun to go back in history and kind of look at where was Jupiter during that period of time. And I don't have that off the top of my head from those charts. But what I think is like we know that the Pluto and Aquarius is that collective humanity and our position
Mm-hmm.
with that, like how we are with technology, how we are with systems that the systems are kind of the Capricorn, the infrastructure that's been
Mm-hmm.
dialing it and what's
Mm-hmm.
been dying out of our systems and getting poised for change, right? Like we're still
Right.
in that very sensitive, fragile, volatile period of time. But Taurus, to me, the Jupiter comes in and tries to start creating something that's more solidifying it, and then it'll have more voice when Jupiter gets into maybe Gemini.
Right.
How that tracks.
Because it's given voice in
Mm-hmm.
Gemini.
Yeah.
It doesn't have voice yet.
Right. But what's also interesting when that happens is Uranus is going to be exiting Gemini at the same time. So it's like an
I
interesting,
know.
it's breaking up conditioned ideas about things. And so
Yes.
our money systems, how we might look at money, how we might the structures of currency or how they are,
Yep.
how they're created, even what's on the face of them, who's going to be on the face of them, all those things. If we keep
Oh yeah,
cash currency
exactly.
like we have, how that might
Exactly. Are
change
we
it.
going to be using cash? I mean,
Right.
I hope we are.
I hope.
But
I think cash is important because then you have
I
in
do
terms of
too.
that's important. But who knows?
But
Who
all
knows?
of that is on the table. I
Yeah.
mean, cryptocurrency and just
Right. That's in
all of
there,
it.
but it's still. There's been some things that have happened in the cryptocurrency world. That's Taurus. That's the Uranus and Taurus has had like high interest, but then a high volatility. That's the Uranus in
Hmm.
there. And then was it FX or FTX or something? The one that didn't work out, completely
Oh
failed.
yes, yes.
And pardon me, I don't follow this like hardcore, but
Yeah, it's not my world. I
right,
can spell
right,
crypto,
yeah.
but that's about
So I don't have anything in crypto, but I'm old school, I guess. But I pay attention just from technology standpoints. Like, okay, will that turn on? And if that's the case, great. But I don't know if it's just another option, right? Like how things like NFTs sell and these kinds of things, all these very different blockchain kind of stuff. But that's
Oh
a
yeah.
very heavy duty what's going on with Aquarius, the Pluto in Aquarius, the Saturn, Jupiter that were in conjunction, kind of starting off a whole new era in the earth sign, or excuse me, in the air signs, because they were formerly before that making their conjunctions in the
Yeah.
earth signs, right? So those are still emerging, I think. So over the next 20 years with Pluto kind of moving through there, because it has to become more accessible. It's not quite accessible to everybody yet.
Yeah. Yeah. What I am hearing rumbles of, which would be that Pluto in Aquarius and the Jupiter in Taurus, is people talking about having, the community, banking in the communities and supporting
Like more
communities.
decentralized.
Yeah, that's up.
I could see why that would be important. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
right.
So rather than having your money in a big bank, you put it in the community bank.
Right, because people are sensitive to bank failures. Yeah. So there's a fear, because the fear, I think, rests in our DNA from our own grandparents and great grandparents who lived through Depression era, and when banks really failed, the system failed them, And so then it was like, what do we do? I mean, and things have come back around, like barter and trade and these kinds of things, and how people make deals with stuff. But how much so, right? Like in terms of how that really gets into the everyday fabric.
Yeah, it is. But remember, with Taurus, even though it's about resources, Taurus is the raw resources. We're looking at a value system and what is important. Mm-hmm. Is it important to support your local community? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's important to support the global community, and it's important to support your local community too. Mm-hmm. And you want those dollars as much as you can to stay in your local community.
Right. Like, and at the holidays, when we have holidays, I mean, it's like shop local, and so that's important.
Oh, yeah.
There are certain,
I mean, I have a card in my, because of the community I live in, being very more agricultural wine country and stuff. It's shopping local is vital.
Right, for the livelihood of folks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's important.
It's really, and that to me, that argument of shopping locally and still being responsible for the global, being a part of the global community. Mm-hmm. That's that Pluto. That's that square. Mm-hmm. Where does one stop? Where does one begin? Right. What is your relationship to it? Mm-hmm. And all that, because I have no problem knowing that I'm a part of the global community and supporting the global community. At the same time, I want to support the grocer down the street.
Mm-hmm. Right. But as a part of that, do you not think about, I know when you're thinking about, when we look at this kind of closer to the earth, being responsible for all that, what that entails. And that to me is how far did the thing travel to get to your table? There's that scenario. And that to me is very much Taurus, right? That's Taurus and local food, that kind of, and
exactly.
More healthy. How long does it travel? Is it in season? All these things, kind of in that equation. Yeah. I mean, because your local grocer can get things locally, but it's what's in season, but also there's still stuff that's available that's coming from all over the world.
Yeah, but you probably won't get that from your local grocer.
Yeah.
You probably get.
Okay, you're talking about the local grocer who's a little bit smaller than a regular grocery store. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where I live in the middle of Washington State, where there's agriculture all around me. There's potato fields and onion fields, and wine everywhere here. Wine field, wineries everywhere, but it's the fields where they harvest everything as well. So, and also how they store and process all around where I live. But what I think is interesting is just how much of that, some of it's processed in a huge amount is the wineries around here. But I mean, the agriculture, the farmers market is creme de la creme during that season, from May to November. But it's, but not everybody does that. And I can't even imagine the entire community doing that, because there wouldn't be enough space and people, right? So, but it is full. I mean, I can see that some people sell out, so that's good, right? But I think it could be even more could it increase the demand over time to have even more? Because will more farmers markets pop up? These kinds of, yeah.
Because here we have 3 farmers markets.
We have 4. So, but we have 300,000 people in this general area. So
and so we don't have nearly.
Right. So it depends on the population, but there's it
depends.
Cities here. Yeah.
It does depend on the population, and I'm not saying that you don't get things from other places.
Right.
Specialty foods and things like that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that with Taurus, because it's dealing with the raw materials, and you're living in a community, you want that community to be healthy.
Right.
And how do you have a healthy community if the local mom and pop stores or whatever it is they're doing go out of business?
Right. So having that balance.
Right. finding that balance there.
Right.
So I'm a huge supporter
Mm-hmm.
of doing what you can to shop locally,
Mm-hmm.
to take care of your community,
Right.
because that is, to me, that's Taurus.
Right. Yeah.
And Jupiter in Taurus,
Yeah.
expanding that, and Pluto. And so, like I said, we're dealing with that square, but see, also we've got, because it's Earth, there's the earthquakes that we're dealing with. There's
Especially California. We don't get as many earthquakes here, but we get heat and the potential for fires here.
Yeah, we get a lot of fires here.
Yeah.
And we have gone through in the past, it's like learning from our past with Taurus, the Dust Bowl. Anyway, we don't need to get into all of that, but what is a healthy relationship with the earth? That is the bottom line.
Right.
Should we be able to eat tomatoes in December?
Well, if you have your own greenhouse, I guess. I don't know. Right? So,
but we're such and see, Taurus is abundance, and it's nature, and nature gives us everything we need if we are in right relationship.
Right. I think that's really important. Right relationship, because right relationships I think over time we have all these products, amazing or not, that hit the market, right? They come into our stores and we, what's this or whatever. We explore these things, but I like how my sister, she's very natural girl. I call her nature's best friend, because she's like, I shop the outside of the grocery store. We're just,
oh God, yes.
So I'm like, yes, Joy. It's like the farmers market and supporting like the farmers, like it's called like a CSA or something, where they have the boxes of stuff, and it's kind of, the more that we do that, the more we're kind of closer to the earth in natural right relationship, right? So that, and to me, is important, and how people can look at it as well. Another thing that's kind of happening at the same time is the lunar nodes of the moon have been shifting backwards through the Scorpio south node and the north node in Taurus. So it's kind of interesting, as Jupiter enters into Taurus, the north node of the moon is right there, and then it kind of makes its entry in July, I think on July 17th, into Aries. But we have a period of time, a few months, from May 16th until July 17th, where it's in the node of the moon, the north node is in Taurus. So to me, that's another emphasis of Taurus and our soul's connection to Earth, and needing that, sustenance and that peaceful place. Even though with the square with Pluto, I think that's, evaluate how important this is to you.
I think so. I think with that node there, the north node, of course, is telling you the direction that you're supposed to go in. And I find, it's fascinating with the nodes, isn't it? I mean, especially when they go through any of the signs, but in particular with Scorpio and Taurus, it's a dance. The nodes I see as two people together, partners dancing. And with Scorpio tells Taurus, okay, you need to regenerate. So you need to weed. You need to get rid of undergrowth and dead growth. And so if Taurus does that, then it can grow more abundant. It can grow more abundance. It can be more vibrant. It's sort of like when you go out and you get a haircut. Hair grows faster after it's been cut. Don't ask me why, but it does. Or it's like you're cutting off the dead stuff in the Scorpio.
It's rejuvenated, yes. It's
so you can rejuvenate. Exactly.
Right.
You clear out the weeds and all that stuff. And so there's that dance. And if you're not willing to do it consciously, Scorpio comes along with, of course, It says, oh, ooh, let me take this away from you.
Right.
So,
It's Scorpio is not. It's doing its job. It's
yes.
doing its job. The universe needs Scorpio, but
Oh,
Scorpio
it
is
definitely
Scorpio, but
does.
it's also the eagle. So it's doing a. There's the dance of that Taurus and Scorpio within us. What
Mm-hmm.
that.
Well, it's what, five animals?
Mm-hmm.
The
So.
snake, the scorpion, the eagle, the phoenix.
And the Phoenix. Yeah. Those are the ones I know.
Four. I thought there was another one, but maybe that's it.
Yeah.
And depending on where you are
right.
on your evolutionary journey,
Right.
that's going to determine which animal is working with you.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like a totem, right? Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, poor Scorpio gets a bad rap all the time.
I love Scorpio. I mean, we have to have it.
Yeah, we have to have it. But it's important to realize that we kind of in this this phase of where we're switching up pretty soon. And that is, Jupiter's going to emphasize that north node. Whenever Jupiter is sitting with, it makes it bigger. And when a node is involved, it is that much bigger. But then
that's just telling us the direction we need to go in.
Right.
It's highlighting it.
It's highlighting it. And yet, babies born at this time are the medicine for the future. So they're going to have Pluto square. So when we have the next,
that's so true. That is true. Pluto is going to be the focal point of that T square.
So it's going to be very interesting. I always think of like what I know that Stephen, our mentor and teacher that we all love, mentioned this at one of the apprentices that we had gone to about the solution to the problem is being born right now. That we're having right now. I was like, well, when they mature at 30, then we can see it. All right. So it's like, okay. So it's like, trust in your future.
Oh my goodness. I don't even know if I'll be on the planet.
I know, right? So 30 years from now, right? I'll be 80 something. But
hey, Granny.
Hey, Granny. I know, right? I could have my gray braids at that point. Who knows? Could be still doing my podcast. Who knows?
There you go.
But yes, it's kind of interesting to kind of think about the present moment, but also kind of how that bears off into our future because of the enduring time period that Pluto is going to be in Aquarius and Jupiter here coming in at this point in Taurus, 23 to 24. We have this period of time and what that initiates for us, what that allows us also to take a moment, smell the flowers, have some bread and butter. It's been a challenging period of time for a lot of people. And, Jupiter in Aries is highlights a lot of activity and go for it, energy. And it's more soothing a bit, even though Uranus is in there at the kind of mid degrees, higher degrees of Taurus. But in the beginning, I think there is some settling down a little bit with that Jupiter. Don't you think that kind of moves into explore?
Well, what comes to mind as you're saying that is that Jupiter-Saturn conjunction that happened at 0 degrees Aquarius in 2020. Right. To me, that is also being activated, that point.
Right.
By square.
That was the end of 2020.
Yeah.
And we were all in a collective moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that collective moment, right about that time is when we first, a lot of people don't want to talk about immunizations, but immunizations can save lives. That's my point of view. And I think it's important to, note that period in our history, we were collectively kind of anticipating what science was going to do. That's Aquarius, to the problem that we were all facing, but I think there is this kind of juxtaposition of what does that mean for us? What was created then? What did, that is another thing about there are two camps on this, and I know it's a really hot topic and it's heated, highly debated, and all that. Okay, fine. People can have their, but we do have science. We have a process with science, and we also have our some folks say God-given body. This is what we have and what we're
Mm-hmm.
working with, and some people like a natural approach. Okay, and then but there are systems and what is allowed for some folks without having this immunization. This is all maybe in that square too, because of how people
Yeah.
will look at it and what that may look like as Pluto, the power, that's power, how it positions. And then I think this can be some thematic stuff that gets worked on during this period of time as well, and curious of where that goes. I mean, I try to
Yeah.
stay in neutral Swiss zone on this, but because people have very strong opinions about it, and they have a right to their opinion. I'm of that people have the right to their opinion, but they have to follow certain rules of engagement in the public, right? That makes sense.
Yeah. And this is a perfect example of the square.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to continue emerging. I don't think that theme is going away, because to me, that Jupiter Saturn, like you were saying, that was that 2020, that was the hot 0 degrees of Aquarius, right?
Right, which is
And
where Pluto is right now.
yeah, and is it not out there and
Yeah,
being
and
in more
Jupiter,
articles and
yeah,
people kind of
yeah,
what are the facts? And that's fine. They should be doing their due diligence, but there's also, I think I covered this with Simon in our podcast on Pluto and Aquarius. It's our situation as humans and how fast science moves. And some people can acknowledge it and some people cannot, based on their educational understanding of it. And also, what does that mean? Because some things that we think in the spiritual community are actually things that science will eventually catch up to, that we are learning about
hmm
our what happens when we're in meditation with our minds. These things, science is catching up. Science is behind in what spiritual does
hmm
anyway, right? So there's this kind of interesting juxtaposition between science and spirituality that I think is also unfolding right now over the next, say, 20 years or so. But with the Jupiter in Taurus, I think it's focusing in on how we nourish ourselves, the
hmm
body, and then there's that juxtaposition of science and what are we looking at, what are we allowing, and those kinds of things. Those are all kind of hot potato,
yeah, those are,
hot
yeah,
potatoes.
those are hot topics, and
Yeah.
I will always believe, even after my dying day, that the reason we had to have this pandemic is so that we could go and contemplate our relationship to nature and our relationship to each other.
Definitely that,
Um,
for sure.
and I don't know that I have no idea how many people did that or not. I mean, we saw
Right.
that when we were inside nature, the animals, the creatures,
Okay.
they were vibrant. They
Right.
were, things were rejuvenating and
Mhm.
all that. And to me, that's the abundance, because I see the earth as abundant. I see the earth actually as Jupiter and Venus in Taurus. And because it's abundance.
Mhm.
At the same time,
And how we heal ourselves, even just by
how
just
we
going
heal
into,
ourselves. But
yeah.
and at the same time, on the other side, we've got the power. I actually believe false power, not true power,
Hmm.
saying, um, okay, I'm going to control nature.
Hmm.
I'm going to control
Right.
how we do things. I'm going to plow up all these hundreds of thousands of acres of trees in the
Hmm.
Amazon. I'm
Hmm.
going to do all of that for the good of humanity, the good of mankind. Really? How is that?
Right.
How does that
Hmm.
how does that
Right.
help? What you're doing is taking the trees that clean the air
Hmm.
away, and you're changing our climate. I mean, so our behavior, our shadow side of Pluto really.
The control mechanism of something. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking that we dominate over it when
we feel we dominate over it.
Participating in it.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And so all of that, I believe, is going to shift because it has to. Because we are getting ready to have a galactic shift.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about the planets that are changing signs in 2025. Think about the
So what's been covered up is going to be more visible. I mean, yeah. I mean, the more I think awakened someone is, I think when someone first awakens into deeper truth that maybe has been veiled from their view, and then they dive into it and they go hunting, they'll find the answers that they need at the moment as they emerge. But some, absolutely, I think we'll realize we're in a galactic scenario over the next 20 years for sure. It'll be way more visible.
Oh yeah, I think it will. And then of course we have groups of people who are going out into space and doing much more exploration. The private industry is in it now.
Right.
And what do you do when you're out there in space and here's this other being that comes to your your window? What do you do? Who are you?
Right.
Or they're talking to you so I have this theory and speaking of Aquarius in technology, I have this theory. I believe we're lazy as humanity. I really do. Because the things that we are creating in technology are all the things that we're capable of doing within ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the AI, especially right now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to put my finger on the value of AI completely, because it's like, do I want to even learn that? But some people who are wired that way, who have high air in their charts, that would be very fascinating, right? So I think it's relative to someone's disposition of what they are, their own core of what's in their nativity, and what's spooling up in their exposure, and what they get interested in. But to me, every soul has a path. Every soul has a journey in the whole mix of how we all will look at it. So whether they play a participating role at a kind of community level or whatever, a small family level, or a much bigger level, like an icon through a country or even an era, right? So yeah, it's pretty powerful to kind of contemplate that and what that looks like.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we talk about, so we created the internet, and hey, I'm all for the internet. Don't get me wrong. At the same time, what is the internet? It's about information. It's about, getting information at your fingertips.
Right.
Well, you can do that without the internet. You can do that by connecting to the divine, by connecting to the collective consciousness. You can pull any information that you need out of the big internet.
Yes, and yet it's different. It's different to pull it from out of the ether, as they say, and down into your, like, what you get is a download. But when you get a download, we've moved collectively as a humanity so far from that kind of knowledge that would bloom through your ancestral experience, right? Like through your grandmother, your grandmother, and your grandmother, right? But then also what you would ask, go out into nature, have an experience with a plant, and have an understanding, right? Like, this is deep. Yes, I agree with you on that. But we're so far removed from that we have to relearn some of that. We're not.
And therefore, and all I'm saying is we're creating the internet. We're creating all of these external tools, which is fine, but it's not developing the inner self so that you can do these things within yourself.
True, but some people who ask a question are guided to go look for things as well, are they not? Or by synchronicity, they're coming through experiences that are sometimes in this dimensional experience. This to me is another dimension. I think of the internet just as like, oh, that's like fourth dimension. It's like another dimension. It's like you can record something and then it's available to you anytime if it's recorded and put into a place, and you can go grab it dimensionally. Like you ask a question and then someone had recorded something from 3 years ago and it lands exactly when it's supposed to land. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but
like a book, but it takes longer to produce a book. It takes more materials maybe to produce a book.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of relative, I guess.
Well, and it is. And all of that information that you pull from the internet is already stored in the Akashic records.
Sure, again, but a lot of people who are just emerging and just awakening, I couldn't say that I could pull something from the Akashic records on my own and know that that's exactly what the truth versus is that what I think it is? You know, because then you get seeds of doubt because you don't know, because you don't have a master teacher, right?
Well, and that's where that is where I'm saying we're creating the technology to do these things, and yet we do have the capability, albeit dormant, within us.
Because there are humans who are doing it. So if there are humans that are doing it, we all have the capacity to do so.
Yeah, yes. We all have the capacity.
Exactly.
I mean, you think about Stonehenge and how they moved those stones. Well, they did that via the mind.
Yeah, sound vibration, I believe. Yes, also.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the technology. I think because of what do you call it? The yugas, like. Our relationship with the sister star series. We're going way off topic, but that's okay. That's what we do. But to me, it's like our relationship, like coming into where we're rising, why consciousness is rising at this time, like it is also because of our relationship, our center of our galaxy with the sister star, our sun with the sister star Sirius, I think it is.
Yeah.
And how that relationship and then how that can, the flow of that. Anywho.
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating because of the relationship of Jupiter and Taurus at this point, and where the lunar node is as it's finishing off Taurus before it goes into Aries. And but the Pluto makes it kind of interesting because it's exciting because of how long it's going to be there, and but we're in a finishing cycle with that Pluto and Aquarius as it finishes.
Aren't we?
Finishes stuff on Capricorn, and that's going to be so interesting for the next until November of 24.
Oh, it is. And with Capricorn, that's where we climbed a mountain in Capricorn.
Mm-hmm.
It's a mountain goat, and so we started in 2008, and we climbed that mountain, and we are pretty much at the top of the mountain at this point because it's getting ready, because Pluto is really getting ready to shift for the next 20 years. And so at the beginning phases of this Pluto and Aquarius, I see us, because Aquarius is still ruled by Saturn and by Uranus together. So it's still, so in Aquarius, it's where we find out whether or not we climb the right mountain.
Right.
In Capricorn.
Because the Saturn to me is like the authority figure and how they use the power when we're concerned to the collective. And that's a part of that theme. The systems that have been broken down and been revealed that do not work during the Capricorn Pluto era. But that still has finishing business to me, which there's still information that will be revealed to us by what transpires. And certain folks play their parts in the bigger storyline, right? So it's a very interesting period of time. This next year and a half, this next 2 years, really interesting as that kind of finishes off. And as we march steadily towards when Pluto is solidly in November 24, Pluto is solidly in Aquarius. It's not going back to a Capricorn.
That's November. Yeah, November of 24. Yeah.
And then eventually we have Uranus jumping into Gemini. And then those two in air signs will be an era of almost like so much mental and spurts of technology that come on really fast. So this period of time with Jupiter and Earth, and with the Uranus still in Earth, is actually very, very important, because the Uranus is breaking up the terrain of conditioned states of mind, conditioned values, these kinds of things. I think, anyway, it's my opinion. And then Jupiter's coming in as well, and like, okay, what is being expanded upon? What is to be seen? How do you value it, like you said, and those kinds of things.
It's huge. And the whole thing is too, we still have to stay connected to the heart, which
Leo.
Yes, we have to. And that's going to be a tall order. I mean, but we can stay connected to the heart if we stay connected to the earth. Because there is a pulse. There's a heartbeat in the earth. And if we stay connected to that earth, then we can create this Aquarian, the high level Aquarian.
Like what we decide to create is more in alignment, because we're more grounded. Being more grounded. Exactly. I hear being more grounded, but also it's like to the individual level, but also to the collective level. Like the right,
because it's really
individual, but knowing that it's in the collective mix. Yeah. Exactly,
because Taurus is ruled by Venus, and Venus is about right human relationships.
Yeah,
that's what she's about.
And coming this year is going to be interesting with Leo, the sign of Leo, because while Jupiter's in Taurus and Pluto's back and forth between Aquarius and Capricorn, but definitely Jupiter in the Taurus. Mars and Venus are both going to have a period of time in Leo, so they are going to square the Jupiter. They're going to be opposite for either in sign or out of sign with Pluto, right, at the beginnings. So in May of this year, so right after Jupiter is entering in, the 16th of May, Mars will go into Leo, and it's there till mid-June. So there's a period of time where there's going to be some friction. That'll be interesting. And then Venus is very, very important this year, and she's the ruling planet, of Taurus, like you said. And that's June. She enters into Leo June 5th, but she goes retrograde July 23rd. At
40 days of retrograde.
Yeah, so she's at 28 degrees 36 when she stations retrograde. And then she will station direct September 4th at 12 degrees. So she has an extended period of time, so she's going to be squaring up with Jupiter a couple of times, right? During that period. So it's going to be interesting because the relationship of Venus to Taurus and that Jupiter's in there. So there's an expanded of like the right relationship, the heart, ourselves, and that it's what we're expanding in that relationship to Earth.
Yeah.
Things grounded. What do we value?
That is. Yep. Because Jupiter has to answer to Venus.
Yeah.
No choice.
Exactly. Yeah, no choice. Right? it's so cool, right? But Venus will square also the Uranus, so there's going to be this kind of disruptive moment about what we may have held, conditioned thinking around this idea. And then there's going to be, but take a look at this. Did you count that one in? You might have forgot this.
This is, what is it? I'm reminded of Betty Davis in that movie. I've forgotten which movie it was, where she said, "Fasten your seatbelt."
Fasten your seatbelts, boys. You're in for a bumpy ride. Right. And so Taurus, I love that Taurus is kind of the sign that I look at as like the place of calm and secure and feet on the ground and that serenity piece. You can find your serenity, but it is a little bit, it is a bit choppy.
Oh, it is.
This,
I mean, it's
with Uranus in there and the Pluto.
Oh yeah.
Square.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I mean, it's really all of what we value.
It's also interesting. I just thought of, just because it's happening really soon, is Mercury in retrograde this year is in Earth signs, right? And right now, Mercury's in Taurus, and it's going to go retrograde next week on the 21st at 15 degrees of Taurus. And
18 degrees?
15 degrees, 36 minutes.
Okay.
On the 21st of April. What I find fascinating about that is that's exactly where Jupiter stations direct in September. 15 degrees, 35 minutes. So same spot. So it gets activated next week. Jupiter also actively on that same degree point on September 4th.
Well, and that 15 degrees that's a major critical degree for the fixed signs.
Because it's right in the middle tradition. Of it.
Yeah. It's I look at that 15 degree sign, 15 degree, as the first 15 degrees you're learning. You're learning how to work. Yeah, it's that turning point. It's like, okay, it's like a testing point. It's a midterm. I see it as a midterm.
Don't we all love midterms? Did I study? I don't know. Did I get that one right? Yeah,
exactly.
And as a soul, like, because we're both aligned with evolutionary astrology and that focus. And to me, kind of like, did you get it the first time, ladies and gentlemen, or do you have to come back around? And did you really break that pattern? Did you?
Yes.
What's emerging from that learning? Yeah,
exactly.
And because fixed signs is so hard to change, so hard.
Very hard, and yet, I mean, they're there for a reason.
To be fixed.
I mean, they're the container. They're the ones who stabilize
everything else. Yeah.
Everything else. Mm-hmm. So they have to be difficult to change because of the purpose.
Yes, but Uranus in there is the spark of here comes some energy that is straight on through.
Here comes Zeus. No, you're Uranus.
Uranus. However you want to say it. So yeah, but to me, it's like when I think of, it's just like a divining rod. It's like the immediate influx of energy coming in because it has archetypally is coming, and I like how Stephen has language things around like the karmic wave breaking, but that's kind of with the nodes and all that. But you can almost what I do quick read charts, I do Uranus to an angle will tell you so much. And to me, it's like there was this experience that it seems like it was dialed in from something that was open, and the channel is coming that way, and it's open gates. Here it comes, and whether you like it or whether you don't, it's there to do something. Manifesting on Earth.
Yeah, and it's also shining light in the darkness so that you can actually see. And that light doesn't stay on long, but it doesn't have to.
Right.
It comes in and now it's like boom, you see it, you see where the exit is, you see this or that, and now right. Even though the lights go out again, know.
Yeah, it's like that divine, like the light comes in. That's a great, the electrical impulse. What's fascinating is about, like, just because we kind of, so often of astrologers use the image of lightning when we're thinking of. And the image of lightning hitting the earth is, and what kind of information is going into the earth through that bolt of lightning, because information is light, light is information, right? I don't know if anybody's ever made that kind of like, oh yeah. That is like coming from our atmospheric down in, right? But it's almost, to me, it's more than that, because Uranus, when you read charts, you kind of explore like the nature of it and how precise it is. And what does get illuminated, sometimes it is something that's tragic, sometimes, right? Sometimes it's like, oh, goodness sakes, we are vulnerable. We are. But if you have a higher sense of your spirituality, you will realize also that you are more than just your body, but you are participating in something more grand that you don't, and there's a little bit of mystery to it. And that's why this is, why people come to astrology, to learn more about their, their connection to all that in our experience with this, right? So yeah, I love that about Uranus. Uranus is very interesting to shed light on that.
Yeah, and the other thing is, if you think about it, this is going out there. Uranus, you could say, is the father of Venus.
The father of Venus. Expand upon that, ma'am.
Because in the mythology, Saturn cuts off Uranus's testicles.
Oh, in the mythology story.
In the mythology, and and they go into the water, and Venus is born.
Oh, emerges out of that. Which is,
and so there is a relationship between Saturn, Uranus, and Venus.
Which is,
as a matter of fact, Venus and Saturn get along. Venus is,
well, to have in the capacity of right relationship with the function of the stability of the relationship, or the commitment of the relationship, or the time enduring, or what?
Yeah, well, Venus understands Saturn in the goal of what Saturn is trying to do in a person's life, regardless of what the aspect is in your chart. Venus is one of the only planets in mythology that understands Saturn, because Saturn is the patron saint of the downtrodden, of humans, really.
Very interesting. I've never thought.
I mean, you have to look at that mythology there, but anyway,
we use mythology
I went out on a limb.
But no, I think mythology is important, but there are some camps in astrology who do not align with mythology. But
I love mythology.
I think mythology is awesome because it gives it's like a painting that has texture. It gives you texture to something that, different angles and because it's perceptions and lenses and things like that. I mean, but I think it's valuable to kind of look, because myth carries it has like a container to it, right? Helps us understand something.
Well, it helps us understand ourselves.
Yeah. Not just ourselves, but sometimes, like the mythology, I think it's like a painting, but people have their own perception of the story for what it is to them versus, you know what I mean? So it carries like that, because a story can have that value to someone like that. It's about ourselves, but at the same time, everybody will contextualize it based on their lived experience and stuff, rather than how they might frame it up and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and so you tell the myth, and you let people come up with their own opinions,
how they feel about
it.
Yeah.
But I love mythology because of archetypes. And each of us has archetypes. Uranus has an archetype, is an archetype. I mean, astrology is dealing with archetypes.
Yes.
And I mean, And so
Layers and
anyway,
layers and layers of archetypes.
layers and layers of
Yes.
it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, when I think about Jupiter, I of course like Jupiter going through Taurus. I think it's going to be I think it's going to be abundance in so many different ways. Not always good, like I said, because the shadow is always there. It's always there, but we're also going to have Jupiter there with Pluto and Capricorn, and of course Capricorn and Taurus are trying each other by sign,
Earth,
not not by degree,
right?
But it's not going to be as, that square isn't going to be as potent or as hard to work through because the signs are trying. They're both Earth signs.
When Pluto's in the Capricorn still.
Right, when Pluto goes back.
Yeah, so that'll be
Capricorn.
interesting next year, or kind of next year, because as it gets tighter and tighter in the trine, they definitely by sign are trying when Pluto's in Capricorn, kind of finishing off. And to me,
it's still,
me, that makes me wonder about money systems and how our banks are, how if there anything emerges out of that based on that from an external standpoint. We have our internal kind of relationship between what we're reconfiguring for ourselves within those archetypal contexts, right? So like Jupiter in Taurus and Pluto in Capricorn, and what that means for us, and individually or collectively, right? So that'll be interesting. So
and then you think about there was three banks, the one in Silicon Valley that failed, and actually that bank funded startups, technology,
Pluto in Aquarius. Yes,
exactly. And then there's been a lot of people who've been laid off, who were in the tech industry,
right?
I think they'll be rehired. I'm not saying that they won't. It's just that
it's what's Pluto, in the transition. It's a transition. I'm in the tech industry during the day. I'm a technical recruiter by day. I'm an astrologer all the other times, and a mom and a wife, a sister. Anyway, I think what we just came through collectively through the era of a pandemic, and the modern day age, and how companies had to respond to that. They hired different folks for different things to turn folks from in office buildings into home work environments very quickly. And a lot of technology had to hire things to make that happen. They're going through adjustment periods because of that. And things are, to me, naturally going through a cycle of not being able to withstand whatever is becoming. The becoming is always becoming. And so it's like, and that's what we're seeing AI emerge, and how are we going to be responsible with AI? It's all going crazy online. I can, we all see it, right? If you're on YouTube, you can see AI
we do.
Everywhere. But it's like, how are we going to be responsible with it, right? And that's all in there. And people have fear around that. Is it going to take my job? Well, maybe, but then what emerges, but I don't think so. It's going to be like people who work with AI. That's going to be the thing that emerges, is people who have skills with it that may do tasks that we are all in the tech industry, too much going on that can be done in simpler ways and more efficiently. But it doesn't mean that there are other opportunities. There are other things that people can be trained on and learning and arising from. But that's the tech part, right? What's the natural part? That's the Taurus.
It's a big issue, because I'm a member of SAG, the Screen Actors Guild. And one of the issues with AI is audiobooks. They've started, there's I forget the name of the company. Audiobooks. You're having AI do the reading.
Oh, versus a human voice?
versus a human voice.
Yeah.
And
I would not listen to an AI book. An AI.
well,
Yeah, I guess it
it
depends on the quality of the AI
it
at the
depends on
point.
the quality.
Maybe in 20 years it'll be a completely different,
But there goes,
undetectable. It's not detectable
but
yet.
that's a whole industry.
I know.
It's an industry of people, actors, who make a living reading books that
I agree with you.
may have
I agree
may
with you.
have to shift. I mean,
Yeah.
what do you do with that? I mean,
And that's going to be our value system. That's us
Yeah,
as a
exactly.
collective deciding, well, we're not going to necessarily, or it has to be qualified to a degree by a business that they're going to be one or the other. Or if they do
Hmm.
hybrid stuff, like some of our stuff is this and some of our stuff is this, right? So that's probably more my what's like what it's what people will value. At the end of the
Hmm.
day, it'll be what the collective values.
Exactly. It definitely will be, because I know that with books, when you have a live actor doing it, their soul is in it. A part of them is in it.
I agree with you 100%. And it's like piece of art that are out there. To
Yes.
me, if we do not have the people doing the art,
Hmm.
I think we're in trouble in a much
Hmm.
bigger way if we don't recognize it. Like, yeah, you can go
Right.
have fun with the tech, but it should never ever replace the arts. The arts should
That's right.
be the part of the human experience, the human emotion coming out from the spark of the inspiration
And
it's
that,
just part of
yeah,
us. And that to
and
me
that
is
is,
so
yeah,
critical to be
and that,
human.
yeah, and that is Taurus.
Mm-hmm.
That is Venus.
No, I know.
That is Libra.
Yeah.
That is,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's the heart also.
Yes. Yeah. Because if you don't, then it's flat. It's
It's flat, exactly.
mhm.
No matter how much emotion. Well, AI can't have emotion.
Now, have you ever? That makes me laugh on one thing that brought to mind. Have you ever heard the kind of AI, like computer generated voices, like, and I can be happy and I can be sad, and they're so fake. Oh gosh, it's like makes me crack up. It's like, oh golly, really? Why would someone put that on their business?
Yeah.
Or on a book that you want, that you value, right? Like that to me, it made me laugh because I remember like, oh, what is this? What are they doing? They're trying to position this, and I just like, yeah, no, it's not quite. But it doesn't mean that they won't work on that and try to make it better and better because they'll want to try. I mean,
Right.
that's what the tech industry does with
But
it.
I do see value in AI. I do see some things that it can do wonderfully. At the same time, we're dealing with the shadow side and
Right. Yep.
the light
Absolutely.
side.
Yep.
I mean, think about when the atom was split back in, what is it? When did they do that? The 40s, the early 40s, when they split
Oh,
the
right where I
atom.
live here, Hanford, Manhattan Project. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was, we got both the good and the bad with that.
That's what it's going to be in our third dimension. There is no
Uh-huh.
other. It cannot otherwise be.
Right.
So, yeah, there's a consequence for knowing that now, right?
There is definitely a consequence, and we are nuclear children. We're children of the nuclear age.
Right.
We are people who, we know things that our parents, we've experienced things, and we know things that our parents and our grandparents could never have known. Is that better? Is that not better?
Well, based on being galactic citizens, I think we have to go through a maturing process with technology. Absolutely. What's interesting,
and maybe that's why we have to,
I think so,
go through the galactic process, because we split the atom, because we have to now be concerned with annihilating ourselves.
or others.
Because
I mean,
exactly.
look at that entertainment. I mean, you go to entertainment, it's all about the blowing up of everything, and it's like, can we even go out there and not think that we have to arm ourselves for everything, right? Like our consciousness is so elementary on some things in terms of that we have to arm up like it's Armageddon or something. It's just how this is where the consciousness is at a certain level, right? It's not saying our whole hit is here, but yeah. Yeah, so we have to mature beyond that consciousness before we
do.
Yeah.
And I do believe that Pluto in Aquarius is helping us to do that. And so is Uranus, I mean, the whole galaxy, I believe, is conspiring to help us evolve.
Well, at a minimum, our planetary solar system is.
Right.
At a minute, so if you can extrapolate from there, then yes, the galactic center.
Going where no man has ever gone
Our sun
before.
is a star. Our sun is a star in the midst of a galaxy. Yes. All of this stemming from Jupiter and Taurus. I love it. We have gone wild. I love it. So
it's going to be a fascinating, not just year, but next couple of years. But in particular, like I said, I am looking for Jupiter in Taurus to bring wonderful gifts, because Taurus is the raw materials.
And I think it's the period of time to actually nourish the soul, nourish ourselves with beauty and things like this, because when Jupiter enters into Gemini, it's giddy up.
Giddy up. And we do have I don't know when your next one is, but your next interview is, but we've got an eclipse coming up.
Yeah, the eclipse is very important. This eclipse is 29 degrees of Aries. That's the solar eclipse. And then the lunar eclipse on May 5th is 14 or 15 degrees Scorpio. The full moon.
But the nodes are at 4 degrees.
Yeah, so the eclipse is like, it's kind of a wider one. It's like 10 degrees or something like that, separate. So it's not like
a little closer, because the nodes are 4 degrees and the eclipse is at 29.
Oh, you're talking about the solar.
Yeah,
because the solar's first and then the lunar. The lunar is on May 5th. So it activates a lot, especially my chart. It's gonna be interesting. Because it's
activating mine too. So
I have because that's at 29 degrees Aries in some minutes. It's at the very, very end. And Jupiter's in that mix right at the end there.
Natally?
No, Jupiter in Aries just by transit is accentuating. It's all hitting right on the end of it's like 4 degrees away from my ascendant, but it's right on my moon. My moon is at 1 degree Taurus and Saturn's at 2 degrees Taurus. And my Jupiter is 22 minutes of Scorpio. So it's really interesting T-square with Pluto right now. So this is going to be very, 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 very interesting. And I think as a mother, because that's the moon in my chart, right? Like me as a mother, my mother as my mother. I kind of look at like the grandmother, the mother, just like then the maternal, but also Saturn in there, because that's like my parental axis. So there's like this whole thing with my parental, because Cancer, Capricorn are my midheaven and my nadir of my chart. So it's so interesting because it's all like eclipsing that point, like within degrees, like just 1 degree, like right there. It's real juicy. And it's interesting because this, like yesterday, I was really tired. I told my husband I got the blues and I don't know why. I don't have anything to put it on, really. And I'm just like, I'm sensing this, and so it's like maybe that's coming. And I feel things early before they begin. But next week is like a critical week because my daughter is going to a huge competition for her remote operated vehicle that goes into the water, because she's going to study marine biology, and this is a competition with the tech, so it's going to be interesting. So I'm like really nervous for her, but I'm just going to keep it to myself and let her do her thing.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Yeah, so it's contain thyself, mother, don't say much. But it's support, and who knows, I don't know which way it's going to go. Be prepared for great celebration, but also be prepared that it could go sideways. And
it's all an experience.
So you try to prepare as much as possible.
It's a good experience for her. Yeah, and for you.
Yes, but there's still unknowns, because with an eclipse you can get things that you're like, oh, I didn't see that one. Okay.
Well, what is it? Yeah, I love it. I love eclipses because I get to say it's like lights on, lights off, or lights off, lights on.
Right. It does. It has that kind of experience. I have a question for you related to eclipses, because of this kind of emerging next week, and kind of preparing us for the Jupiter, right? It's really Jupiter's finishing off Aries and going to go right into, settle down into Taurus. So do you observe that a lot of activity really that's kind of part of that eclipse actually happens before the actual eclipse in real time? Do you observe that? Or do you observe things that are within hours? Or
what I observe are things that are foreshadowing.
Say again.
Of the foreshadowing of the eclipse, that is giving you like a preview of what the eclipse energy is going to bring into manifestation.
Because I've had some clients. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Because I've had some clients that have come to me during, the after effects and manifestations of eclipse seasons and hardcore, major life transformations. Maybe they lost somebody they loved, or, they lost something in their business. I mean, really major stuff, right? That comes through during those periods of time. And it's really, it's a trying time for souls, right? And I have great empathy and compassion for souls who say, yes, it's dialing in, it's on your chart. And this is your karmic moment of the wave breaking, as they say. But it's kind of interesting to observe over time how often I have observed, and maybe this is just my little small desk and my small amount of folks that I've seen, of events actually happening the days just right up, or hours from the actual eclipse. That's when the events really kind of play out. But then it's like the person is like, what happened? It's like that feeling of like the bottom falling out when the thing does get, fully experienced in the third dimension. So, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I read it a little differently, because it's like a lot of times, even if it's not an eclipse, say you're going to have an exact opposition between, say, Pluto and your sun, or whatever. A lot of times you've gone through the loss before it becomes exact, because when the exact happens, that's when it's time for you to put the pieces back together, or it's time for you to actually see clearly, to see what the issues are. And a lot of times it's triggered by other things going on in the chart, and then the eclipse comes along.
Absolutely. But the aspects of what are really like conjuncted, opposite, square, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the eclipse comes along, and it helps you to see what it was all about.
Yeah, for some people.
Yeah.
I don't think everybody, let me just from experience of observing that an experience happens, but it doesn't, folks are at different places on the spectrum of
No, that's true.
acknowledging that yes, that was just part of what it was going to be, and for you to accept that, and that person played a role to that point. But from the next chapters, it was for you to unlock yourself in this new paradigm, and that's maybe something more critical to realize and acknowledge and accept. But that there's a grieving period, of course, when people have major transitions. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, I think there's something really valuable to kind of glean about the eclipse. The light is gonna, like, the lights, I love the example that you give, light on, light off. Like, the light is there and then it's not, in the dark and then not, but it can feel so major for some people. So I think it's
and it does,
yeah.
depending on what that eclipse is activating in the person's chart.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be freaking
yeah.
life changing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Major, and that you still have to go back and look at that nodal story and what the intention is of that soul for that particular lifetime. Because if you have been on path doing the work, the internal work, those eclipses are just going to further your
shift. Like the path opens like a new door or a new window. You didn't see it before, and that's available to me now. Yeah. I've seen that too. I think it depends.
Yeah, exactly. But see, those souls who come to you during that time are ready to hear. They're ready to know.
At least the initial seed.
Yeah.
I'll say that. And then it takes some time working through it. Might be a couple times.
Exactly. Well, because you still have to integrate.
Yeah, and integration takes longer for some because of acknowledging. It's kind of like going over the wound again, they have to keep acknowledging, going back and saying, okay, I acknowledge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I still remember going through a soul retrieval ceremony in, where the heck was I? Bhutan. And, I needed to, in order to heal anything, you must have all of the pieces of you back in your form. Because every time you go through a wounding, you expel energetically a piece of you, wherever that wounding happened. And in order to heal, you got to call that piece back. Well, you're calling that piece back, but that doesn't mean you've healed it. You're just calling it back so that you can heal. And the reason I say this is because I went through
That's really good. I like that. Thank you.
Yeah. And so I went through this soul retrieval to call back all the pieces of myself. And of course, when I went through the soul retrieval, which would be, say, the eclipse, I didn't feel anything. It was a year later.
What do you mean?
When it's like,
What was a year later?
A year later is when I knew I felt different. All the pieces were back. But I didn't feel it at the time of the actual ceremony. I mean, other people around me were feeling stuff, but I didn't. Just call me dense.
Right.
But
no, I think there's something timing specific. I have an experience with the big eclipse that we had back in 2017. Is that one? Yes.
Yeah, that was a huge one.
That was major totality and very near me. My family went out with little glasses on, a lot of looking at the eclipse. It wasn't total where we were, but really close, right?
Yeah.
But it didn't really get anything when it was happening. But the next year, to the day in my chart where that thing was happened, so where the eclipse was, to the day where the sun would return, I got in a car accident. And so what was amazing to me, because it was a fire sign, it was Leo, right? It was like eclipsing in Leo. That is it was right on my, what they call the lot of fortune. Things that happened to you faded, kind of thing. And then that's the traditional perspective anyway. And then my son is trying that and trine to my own ascendant. So it's in this fire trine of my chart. So that eclipse happens. So it was like, and I did not see someone. So, and at the time also was Neptune square Leo, Venus. So I couldn't see the other person. I thought I had the right of way. I did not. I was the one who made the mistake. And so I thought that was, so when I went through the experience, like, oh, that's my blind spot. Hello. You know, I did not get hurt. My daughter was with me, and thank God she did not hurt, because the way the car hit us, it hit the tire. And but my daughter had like an experience that I can't even explain. She kind of was like, yeah, my guardian angel Luca kind of helped me. I'm like, okay. You know? And so this kind of thing, like, she kind of turned on and shared with me, like, oh, I think that my guardian angel was with me, and that's why it hit the tire and not my door. And I was like, okay, cool on that. I'm just grateful. And it just, you know, my daughter has her own, she's very similar to me. We get dreams, and then we get cognitive, we get precognitive dreams all the time. So I'm teaching her as a mother, like, oh, write them down. You'll get, you know, explore this awareness that you have, and that universe is showing you and showing you and showing you, and it's going to get more significant for you because you have it and you're aware of it. So the universe gives you more. So that to this day continues to grow. And so now she has a book like this that she's been writing her dreams that come. And then she's like, Mom, it's true. It's 1 year later. You know? I'm like, you know? And so it's kind of like these kinds of events can open these awarenesses. And then this consciousness that we have about something bigger in the field that we're operating within. And I think it's super powerful how that around the eclipse season is so charged and turned on, and things activated for people.
Yeah, it is. And it's like, you know, something happens and it takes time for your awareness to catch up.
Yes, absolutely. It takes time to go, oh, wow, right?
I mean, your neighbor or your best friend might have seen it 5 years ago that you needed to do something, but the eclipse comes and maybe a year after it's like, oh.
Right. Because sometimes we're just busy doing the daily, you know, and it doesn't dawn. Yeah. We have to have it dawn on us through some kind of activity that makes us pause and go, wait a minute. But to really truly integrate something, you know, it does take time to like change our way of being and how we perceive and perception, right? Your perception can, like, I couldn't even see it before until you had something open up like that, and your perception starts changing, and then you're like, wow, it's really different than I thought.
Absolutely.
This reality works different.
It really does. I mean, I can attest to, I am totally different than I was 10 years ago.
Yeah. Same.
I mean, my belief system has shifted. That's why you have what we call relative truth and absolute truth. Absolute truth never changes. They're the laws of the universe, never changes. And yet relative truth changes based on your reality.
Your reality and your conscious perception of it, of how, what lens you're looking through.
Exactly. And that lens has to shift. I mean, well, I shouldn't say has to shift, because some people refuse.
It may or may not. And those that are active, like playing an active role in engaging with why something would be emerging as it is or not, or whatever. If you're not actively considering that, then you're in a kind of a status quo position of like, accept as it was here.
Right.
And that's as far as they'll go, and they'll leave this earth, and that person,
Yeah, and
that
do it
persona
again.
that they'll do something else.
Absolutely.
Right.
To me, that's the definition of zombie.
Well, it's just maybe zombie, but to me it's more like that's as far as that person could desire to go based on the problems of the soul. Okay. I don't. It's one. I don't judge it per se. I kind of like this. I discern. Well, I am going to constantly tend this garden. I think it's interesting. I think it's fascinating. I don't even. I don't have all the answers. I'm curious. A state of curiosity is how I go about it. But I think there can be many who only go to a certain point, and that's as far as their soul kind of felt comfortable.
It's a lot of times there's a battle between the soul and the personality.
Yeah.
And the soul wants to experience and learn and grow and has its agenda, and the personality has its agenda. Yeah. The personality.
So me using the term soul just now, maybe it's more that I meant ego. Yeah.
Ego.
Exactly. So it's because the ego is I play it safe. I don't disturb. I don't change. I'm not going to rock the boat. This is how it's always been done. I'm not going to challenge that idea. And
Exactly. Yeah. And so the person who stays in a job or a marriage or wherever for 40 years and they don't want, for whatever reason, but there's something that dies inside if they don't evolve and grow. There's no judgment.
No judgment.
It is what it is. It's just that you start going through life in more of a fog.
I could see why I could see why you use the term zombie then for that fog.
Yeah. That's where I was going with that. And there's a lot of people who do that.
It's not disturbing. Disturbing the status quo is not something that's like, why would...
Right, exactly. Right. Until Uranus comes along.
What's happening here?
Tap, tap, tap. Or that eclipse.
Right, but that's the whole point. It's to break up the conditioned. But it doesn't, even then, there can be... They had the experience of something that's to disrupt, but it still didn't catalyze new direction, new change in the invitation to look at something to
right, exactly, because of the fear. I still remember Alan Oken telling a story of a client, female client, who had been working with him for years, and she had been transforming and changing, and she came to him one day and said, I can't work with you anymore. If I continue to work with you, I will change more. And if I change more, I will lose my marriage. Therefore, I cannot work with you anymore.
She was making a very conscious choice at that point. Right? She knew, where some of us just like... Right. But I don't think people fully understand sometimes when they're taking those steps. Sometimes they do. It's like, they don't understand all the carnage that can happen on the way out.
And there's a lot of carnage.
Oh, absolutely.
That can happen.
It's not easy. And so souls who make those choices for themselves are
right. Right. And it's
being brave.
Right. And I know he honored where she was.
That's beautiful.
She made a conscious decision. This is as far as I go because my marriage is too important for me to change more.
And good on him for not judging, because that could happen with some astrology folks out there.
Exactly.
And so to have a teacher or someone that she was learning from, who she's not feeling judged by a choice that she's making, and it's like, okay, and wherever that's going to take you, and trust that, right?
Right. You pick up where you left off next lifetime or later in life. It's okay.
Right.
It's all okay.
Right. Or the invitation again just reemerges in another life. Absolutely, at some juncture, the soul's like, okay, she made that choice here, and that's going to emerge over here.
Yeah,
but there may be something to. It depends on where she was in her life cycle, right? Like if she's in her late 60s, 70s, or what, someone's going to be like, how they might think of it versus their 40s. There's different points in time where a soul might decide that, right? And I could see that. Right.
Yeah. It's all okay.
Right.
And so, it's good. We do the best that we can. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we make choices based on our belief system. Mm-hmm. And that's okay too. Mm-hmm. Yep. I believe we have many lifetimes, and we can't unlearn. We can't really unlearn what we've learned. We can cause it to go dormant, because I believe we've done that. What we knew thousands of years ago was way more than we know now.
Yes, in some technology, yes. But I think that's just like the cycle of the star and the consciousness that goes with it. So, But there are different things now. Who said this? I don't know who said it. I watch so much stuff that I'm so interested. I'm a little bit of an information junkie, and I love it. But I love learning different things about the galactic kind of stuff. Like the technology that anciently is sitting there for you to look at and see. But pyramids. But that's all I'm gonna say about that. But it's coming back around. It's like we're coming back into maybe learning something about our future selves.
Maybe.
Like that whole relationship with our sun with Sirius, and how, the relationship of how they're like a binary, right? And how consciousness speeds up as we get tighter in that. We've been on the outsides of that, right? They call that with apogee and perigee.
Yeah.
So to me, there's something to that where we, through time, as it's been recorded, there was some kind of technology before. We know that from the writings of Plato and what he references and things like that. But in terms of we're merging back into tech, how is that relationship, or can we create a catalyst kind of experience again if we're not careful? We kind of have a little bit in the World War II, the Great War.
Well, yeah, and you think about how many times we've destroyed the world.
So, in terms of like the tech, right? I don't even know if we could even calculate that, but based on some things that are emerging now, it kind of makes me wonder about that where we were with technology and sound technology back, that's emerging now that we're becoming more aware of, and where we're going with tech as it is now without thinking, in the collective. There's collective, like general consensus, and the systems that run communities and shipping and things that run the world as they are. But then there's the spiritual awareness that's ramping, consciousness ramping faster and faster, right? But what's the tipping point, right? There's a tipping point where more get closer to that. So that'll be interesting to see over the next 20 years how that emerges as well.
Yeah, it is. And that nothing is new. What we are creating is not new. We've done this before.
Right.
We're just remembering what we what we used to know, because it's there. It's dormant.
True. But some things have been hidden too from our
visibility.
True. So people are re-emerging back into, I didn't know that. Well, because it was even astrology from hundreds of years, longer than that. Probably 1,000 years almost. Well, it kind of reemerged back with William Lilly. So you kind of had your Hellenistic period, and then you had your medieval period, and then you had William Lilly, right? Like coming out of the Renaissance, or he was around there. But it's kind of like, and then it went kind of really, quiet and dormant, as you would say, went beneath even more deeper.
Yeah.
And people were wounded deeply for practicing and
Oh yeah.
learning, and then that knowledge, and then it was hidden, it was coded into
Oh yeah.
stuff about the knowledge.
Exactly.
The hermetic wisdom was coded.
Yep.
And I think that's so fascinating what we're learning now about how hermetic wisdom was encrypted into certain things by certain iconic figures.
Oh yeah. I mean, you think about it's like we're having to rewrite our history because of all the things that are being rediscovered. All the like Göbekli Tepe, and that whole area of the world where in Turkey where they're figuring out, it's like, oh my God, they could do this. We didn't know that these people could do this. We didn't know they had that technology. Or the oh goodness, where is it? Where they have the Ice Age. Before the Ice Age, there was a group of people who lived underground, and they found all of these cave systems and labyrinths and where people lived before the Ice Age. I mean,
so what we're learning about our own history, our own, ancestral DNA from thousands and thousands of years ago, right? Like that's hundreds of thousands of years ago, isn't it?
I mean, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal what is going on. But anyway, that goes beyond the Jupiter in Taurus talk. Not that we
but I mean, there's some pieces, it's like, this is what's fun about astrology and contemplating archetypes and, these planetary transits and shifts and what that means for us individually in our own charts. Also what it means for us collectively as we continue to evolve as a humanity, right?
Yeah.
So that's
because what is it? It's a spiral. I mean, we keep coming back to the same point, the same spot, but we've spiraled up.
Right.
I mean, because all of these planets they've been there for millennia. I mean, they've been there, and these configurations. I mean, it may be thousands of years before the same configuration is set up again. But we've had this happen before. And so now we're at a different point in the spiral, having it happen again.
Right. And I kind of look at it as like different frequencies tapping into, because the frequencies are happening all around us in our field, and also then what materializes into form. So, and that's the fascinating, I'm so fascinated by that. Like what comes out of the field and into form. But Taurus is form and earthly, but it's also, you have your own inner zodiac Taurus, and that's what you value, and beauty and your serenity, your place of where you may have an enduring quality of what you have passion about towards life. It's life affirming, and so I think this is going to be an interesting period of time when Jupiter's in Taurus, and
it is. I'm looking forward to it personally, as a moon in Taurus would. Moon and Venus in Taurus.
Absolutely, it's like accentuating that as well. Well, we have been extending our stay on the podcast today. We have almost gone 2 hours. So
around the world in 2 hours.
Right. And then out into the galactic and back again. So thank you for the time, Marie. It has been a pleasure. And do you have any events that you're doing? Are you going to be at any of the astrology conferences? Do you have any workshops? I know that you're teaching right now.
Yeah, I'm teaching. I'm teaching FCA, but I'm getting ready on May 20th. I will start a new class at Kepler College on life coaching.
Oh, awesome.
I'm teaching. Yeah, I'm teaching fundamentals of life coaching through them,
Cool.
and that's 2 5-week classes. And the first one begins
2 5-week classes. Okay.
Yeah, so they're teaching 2 classes, but they're 5 each is 5 weeks long.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one begins on May 20th. So I'm doing that. I just finished my virtual healing retreat for the spring, but the next one will be in October, and that's where I offer it's 2 days, 3 hours each day because it's online, of 5 different presentations on healing topics to help people heal themselves because I believe that each person has what they need within them to heal whatever emotional trauma that they have. And you just need the tools to be able to access.
So that's a virtual one that you do in the next one that you have is in October.
Yeah. The next one is in the fall in October, and I haven't I haven't come up with the theme yet, but that, so you can always check my website. You can check me out on Facebook or Instagram and to figure out that. And I am continuing to give talks about healing, especially with my book, giving talks in the community, working with TEDx, Sonoma County.
That's nice.
I love helping other people shine their light out in the world. So I've been doing that. But yeah, and working with FCA, teaching classes there, seeing clients, seeing life coaching clients and astrology clients. So yeah.
Good. And so they can follow you on Facebook.
On Facebook, LinkedIn.
And LinkedIn. But
LinkedIn
also
and
website.
Instagram. My
Instagram.
website. Yeah, they can find me padmalifecoaching.com and also andthelotusopened.com. If they want to learn more about me, they can, of course, read my book.
Yep.
andthelotusopened.com.
And I read your book, and that piece of artwork was something that was inspired by your book. Not that I did that, but a local artist did that. And I had just read your book, so I bought that. Right after I read your book. So it is about the lotus. Isn't that lovely? So
I love that because each of us has a plant totem, and mine is the lotus. So
I love it. It's in my office every day now. Well, that is a wonderful long show. So that was a long show, but that's all right. We sometimes will go extra because we're extra sometimes. And
we're special.
And that's fun. And then not only that, I have fun with you. So thank you so much for the time. It's been a pleasure. Everyone, thank you for staying this long. If you have, you get 5 stars from us. So thank you so much and have a great rest of your month. And we love to hear from you in the comments on the YouTube channel that I share this. I always like to hear from people. So you can share your comments on what you think about the Jupiter coming in May and into 2024 for Jupiter in Taurus. So thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your month. Take care. Bye-bye.